The bat signal has been lit. Go through the grandfather clock, secret entrance, and head back to the Batcave. It's time to revisit the Batman animated series with your hosts, Adam and Nick.
Welcome to another episode of Back to the Batcave, revisiting Batman the animated series. As always, I'm your host, Adam. And with me is my co-host, Nick. Nick, how's it going?
Doing fantastic, brother. Happy to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a very fantastic time indeed.
Yep.
On all fronts, the comics there's always endless amounts of Batman comics at our disposal. There is new developments on the live action movie front. And of course, as we wait for the announced and coming sometime new Cape Crusader animated series, we are going back and revisiting Batman the animated series, the classic and everlasting iteration of Batman, in my opinion. So, Nick, as I alluded to, there are live action developments with our favorite hero from Gotham City. And we both talked about it on various shows, but we're going to go a little bit more in depth because you can never have enough Batman talk, in my opinion. And I know there's a bunch of like Green Lantern and Flash fans and some
Now there
Superman fans
is.
scoffing at that comment, but it is what it is. The Bat keeps the lights on at DC Comics, so
Batman and
pays the
Bugs.
bills. So we're going to talk about it. So much to his, word, James Gunn on January 31st gave DC fans a Christmas present, a month and change after Christmas, and that was revealing the DC slate. And so what that afforded us was bits of information that included the fact that for every non-shared universe entity, that will fall under a specifically designed Elseworlds banner, which is something that we've often mentioned on this show, and our you guys at the Vigilante 1939 have talked about it, and I've talked about it with Donnie and Chris. And so they're doing that. And two Batman-related projects fall under that category as of right now, which would be the Joker and its upcoming sequel, Joker Folie à Deux, and as well as the Batman and its forthcoming sequel, the Batman, I believe it's part 2, or is it chapter 2, part 2?
Part 2.
It's part 2, yeah. Like The Godfather.
Yep.
Now, along with that information, James Gunn said that we will be getting the Batman part 2 on specifically October 3rd, 2025. That is about what, 2.5 years from now?
Yeah.
Give or
About
take?
4 years from the first, about 2.5 years from now. Yep.
Yeah. He also said that Matt Reeves is crafting a crime saga with his Batman, and that the additional spin-offs, like the Penguin with Colin Farrell, will fall under the Elseworlds banner. So before we go any further, what do you think of the idea of putting stuff that's not related to the shared universe in an Elseworlds under an Elseworlds banner? And also, what do you think of the title and release date for the Batman Part 2?
Yeah, the first part of that, the Elseworlds banner, I think was something that, we as DC fans, I think we've kind of always known was there, but the fact that it's actually officially branded, I think is kind of what's going to benefit DC in the long run, because especially like when we get more into all these announcements, I think the Elseworlds label is even more crucial to the longevity of DC as a whole. So I think differentiating the Batman from everything that is coming was a very smart ploy, because that movie definitely stands on its own, and rightfully
Yeah.
Rightfully so. As far as the actual announcement goes, this is like obviously the good part, right? This is what everybody wants
Yeah.
to talk about. Is October 2025 is interesting because I believe that was like the first October was initially when Matt Reeves wanted to release the Batman in the
Yeah.
first place, and then it kept reshuffling due to COVID and pandemic and all this other stuff. So I guess it's cool that it actually gets to be in its date, but it's also interesting because Batman's usually a summer blockbuster movie, right? So a Batman movie isn't going to be in the summer. That's actually really interesting in and of itself. But 2025, Adam, is really really exciting for me because it's for the first time we're going to have a Batman movie and a Superman movie
Yeah. It's the
in the
world's
same year,
finest
and they're
year.
like 3 4 months apart. So that's really
Uh,
really
that's
exciting. And look, man,
that's heaven. Heaven.
waiting, yeah, waiting 3 4 years, is kind of par for the course, right? For Batman movies. So
Yeah.
if you're somebody that like, oh, I think James Gunn is rushing Matt Reeves, to get the, I don't really think that's the case. I think this is
If
kind of
anything, he's not
par for the
rushing him
course.
because yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a date,
3 year gap between releases is the traditional
right?
trajectory between Batman releases. I mean, yeah, Dark Knight Rises was 4 years after the Dark Knight, so it
Yep.
was a year longer. So I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's going to be a hell of a year.
Yeah. What do you think, man?
Superman
Yeah.
Legacy and the
Right.
Batman Part Two.
World's
Uh,
finest, man.
I've waited for that kind of release strategy my entire life,
Yep.
and it's finally coming. So for people out there, don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything weird with animals. We don't need more pandemics around. Please, keep that crap bottled up inside you until whenever there's not any more DC movies. Then you can do all the crazy crap you want. But yeah, for until then, keep it in check. Damn it.
Yeah.
You want to get weird? There are websites for that. Just do a Google search. Anyway, but so yeah, no, I'm thrilled by the having uh, Batman and Superman in the same year.
Mhm.
You mentioned the October release, and it's kind of one of the first times that Batman hasn't been released in the summer.
Yeah.
The only other time that we haven't had a Batman movie in the summer would be Batman versus Superman, which was around
March.
Easter time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in 2016. So, but they've all been traditionally summer releases. But again, with the tone that we saw in the Batman, I think an October release date fits.
Mhm.
Studios have had success in October with this genre. I mean, on the Sony side, they had the Venom movies, which made a crap ton of money in October, and the Joker, the first Joker, um, released in October and made $1 billion. So
Yeah.
um, the proof is in the pudding that is a viable date, depending on the property.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to see a Flash film in October.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think he's more a summer type of vibe.
Agree with that.
Um, and so, I like the date. It's going to be very cool to have the second Joker film in October of 2024, and a year later we have the second Batman film.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna hazard a guess that the first teaser for the Batman 2 or Part 2, I gotta get used to saying that.
I know.
Um,
The Godfather of DC, Adam.
that's right. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. I was never out. I was always in, and I always will be for DC. But um, I venture to guess that the Batman Part 2 teaser will probably uh, premiere with the Joker 2.
Mm.
Because usually the first teaser trailer comes a year out from a film, typically,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
I mean that's getting ahead of ourselves, but that's what I see. Um,
It's one way to make a bang, that's for sure.
yeah, and then we talked about the Penguin and related spin-off shows on HBO or HBO Max being part of the Elseworlds banner. Speaking of that, Colin Farrell is doing the awards circuit, and spoke to Variety and said that he begins shooting the Penguin on February 28th. So by the time you hear this, maybe, depending on when the release the schedule of this happens, we'll either be really close or it'll already have started filming. Maybe I'm just going to drop it on that day just for fun. No. But either way, it's eminent, and Colin Farrell described it as in the continuity of the show. We pick up a week after the Batman ends, and if everything goes according to the previous iteration of Matt Reeves' plans, the Penguin will end and feed in directly to the start of the Batman Part 2. So, what do you think of all that, Nick, in terms of the Penguin and how it feeds from the ending of the Batman and then feeds into the Batman Part 2?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I feel like I'm getting just more and more excited for this series, just kind of like as the day goes by. Not just as Colin Farrell is really like doing his thing, just talking it up like nonstop. So I think like that's getting everybody really excited. He did mention that it might actually be 8 episodes too, which is that's really really cool too, because that means there's a nice just tight story that's going to be told there, and like you said, it's going to lead directly into the Batman 2, which is what we all really hoping for. We really only know of 2 people in this series, which is also kind of interesting too. Like just Colin Farrell's Penguin, and then Sophia Falcone is in the show. I think those are the only 2 confirmed people, at least that we know of. So I'm sure we'll get more on that as the series goes on. But look, man, everybody, yeah,
it wouldn't shock me if on February 28th we get a press release saying, "Okay, filming has started, and here's the
of
cast."
everybody. Yeah. That's true. But yeah, everything that you said too kind of just sounds like this is just going to be a great appetizer for the Batman Part 2 is really what it sounds like. And you know what, Adam, right now, HBO, they just can't miss, man. They're just knocking it out of the park with everything
Yeah,
that they
apparently,
come out with. So,
I mean, I'm not a video game guy, so I don't watch The Last of Us. It's not.
oh,
It's
but
not
yeah,
on,
it's phenomenal. Yeah.
it's not on my radar. But I've heard nothing but phenomenal things. So, and I'm a fan of the Game of Thrones universe, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I know the quality that HBO puts out, and so to have Batman-related projects on there from the creative mind of Matt Reeves, I mean, it's a dream come true. Like
Mm-hmm.
as a Batman fan, you want nothing more than top tier creators treating the characters that we love with respect, and in one outing, Matt Reeves has certainly shown that he has that and does that. So, and like I said when we previously talked about it a couple episodes back, the fact that we get to live in this world, this version of Gotham, for a more extended period of time than just 2 hours every few years, is something that we haven't had really
Nope.
in quite some time. So, I mean, the longest we've spent in a Gotham City in live action is probably the 1960s version, right? Because every week
Mm-hmm.
we get an adventure in that version of the story. So
Yeah.
it's been a while. So this will be a nice change, and I think I just add layers to the story that we're getting, which is always a good thing. So I'm over the moon about all the things that are happening in the Batman universe, and I'm assuming that we will get the Penguin at some point in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
In
Seems like a good
fact,
bet.
I think our DC output in 2024 will consist of the Joker 2, the Penguin, Creature Commandos, and Water. Those will be the 4 main
Seems like a great lineup to me.
Yeah, it's I mean, like I said, it's good. It's we're getting uh, another piece of a top tier story with the Batman universe, but we're also getting the DC Chapter One Gods and Monsters appetizers with Creature Commandos and Waller. So
Yep.
you get both the Elseworld flavor and the main universe flavor. It's good.
Everything.
So I'm excited, and that takes care of the Batman part. Anything else you want to add about the Batman universe before we transition to the DC universe?
No, I'm just exciting, man. Like you kind of reiterated off the top. I think when we all woke up on January
Oh,
31st, I don't think getting news on the Batman Part Two was something that we were expecting or anticipating, especially let alone a release date. So just to get that on top of everything
this is the fact
that
that we
we
got 10
got,
projects. I was like, all right,
I know,
just
right? That was just like
what
icing on the
Christmas is
cake,
this?
man.
Because Santa Claus has not come to my
Yeah,
house in
yeah. And that was the
uh,
first thing I saw. Might add was the two dated project was the first thing that I saw
oh, that's a
when I
beautiful thing
woke
to
up.
wake
So
up
that
to.
was just like
I mean,
I was off to a
look,
hot start.
short of waking up next to Margot
Yeah.
Robbie and Alexa Bliss simultaneously, this is probably the second best thing to wake up to, in my opinion. Uh,
Coming from you, that
now,
says a lot.
now, had I woken up with those two and then read this announcement, even better. I mean, then I could just life could be over and I'd be all right with it. Um, but so yeah, no, it's we were spoiled that day, and speaking of surprises,
Hmm.
um, you may be wondering. I mean, nobody's actually wondering, but I'll go on. Let's pretend you haven't seen the news up until this point, and you're totally oblivious, and you just stumbled across YouTube, and this was the first thing you saw related to Batman. I don't know how that would be possible, but welcome. Here you are. You've never heard any of this. This is the first time. So one of the other surprises that we got was that, yeah, sure, we're going to get more of the Batman universe, but you can't have a DC universe, a shared DC universe, without the presence of Batman. So we all knew that eventually that we'd get a version of Batman in the shared universe, but there was a lot of speculation of mainly two things. When would he make his entrance? Because there are some that thought, okay, James Gunn is going to wait until Matt Reeves finishes his trilogy or his presumed trilogy, and then introduce the DCU shared universe Batman. And the other thought process was, up until then, before that happened, could Batman potentially only appear in cameos to kind of stoke the fires? Well, neither of those are true. James Gunn is not waiting until the Batman Elseworld story is completed. And he's not just going to sprinkle Batman in random cameos until that point. We are getting a brand new shared universe DC Batman and Batman film with the movie titled, as of right now, The Brave and the Bold. First of all, that's a great title in and of itself.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say at some point they're going to tack on Batman to the front of that.
Mm-hmm.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Either that, or if they don't put Batman in the front of it, you can bet the logo for that movie is going to have the Batman logo right freaking like the words "The Brave and the Bold" are going to be inside of a Bat logo. I guarantee it. So there's that. So but the cool thing about this Batman is he's not going to be alone.
Mm.
For the first time since the travesty to film, to comic books, to the DC universe known as Batman and Robin, the character of Robin will appear beside Batman in a film. So we haven't seen that since 1997 on film. So that means we're looking at 20 26, 27 years
It's a long
since
time.
Batman and Robin have appeared on the big screen together. And then add to that, until the movie comes out. But the interesting thing here is the Robin in question is not Dick Grayson. It's not Jason Todd. It's not Tim Drake. And no, to a certain group of people out there, it ain't Carrie Kelly, so sit yourselves down. It's Batman's flesh and blood son, the little prick himself. And I say that with the most love in the world because I grew up to love that little guy. I didn't at first, but I really appreciate him now. The interesting point, and James Gunn and Peter Safran refer to him as.
I was going to say, how you describe them as how.
Yeah, I mean they said worse, but I me calling him a little prick is sugarcoating it. They call him worse, but in addition to Damian Wayne, Peter Safran mentions other members of the Bat family will be introduced in this film. So now, Nick, tell me your response, your feeling when you realize we are getting a DCU Batman film, and it is going to have Robin, and that Robin is going to be Damian Wayne.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot to unpack here, right? Because initially, again, kind of the night before, depending on if you were active online or anything like that, or if you spoke to people, there was growing speculation that on this slate there was going to be a Batman and Robin movie.
Yeah.
Like I said before, we didn't know we were getting Matt Reeves' Batman announcement to correlate with this, so that was double the double the win, I guess, for all of us. But what's fascinating is because all this time we were anticipating there's just going to be one Batman, right? Because the word going around was that everything's going to be more uniform. There's not going to be multiple iterations of characters unless there's a specific story that's being told. So this whole thing that now, if we're going to get Robert Pattinson still as Batman, but then we're going to get this other Batman that's going to tie into the larger set of things in the DC universe. So again, kind of we're going to get two simultaneous Batman at the same time. Hopefully they're both excellent. One of them I happen to think is excellent. Hopefully they get the other guy that they can find, which now we got to go through the whole saga dance again, Adam. Who's going to play the Cape Crusade?
I like the casting process. I enjoy it.
Yeah, so do I. It is kind of fun.
I mean, especially when you do what I do, which is don't get attached to one particular actor and just be like, oh, okay, that's who they chose, right? Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Or if they choose somebody wildly inappropriate, like Jack Black as Superman, then if he does that, then I may start doubting James Gunn. But usually I'm pretty excited for the casting process.
Yeah, agreed. So obviously the part that you said too about the Robin of choice, I think was the one that got all the everybody a little antsy. So yeah, it is fascinating. It's Damian Wayne, who, like you said, so Adam, I have a love and hate relationship with Damian Wayne. So I don't necessarily hate him. I don't also love the character. I think his character has really solely been dependent on who writes him and how he's portrayed. Right? Like I love him in Grant Morrison's Batman one, which James Gunn is using heavy influence on. He's great in Peter Tomasi's run. He's great in the latest Batman Superman Battle of the Super Sons animated movie. Watch that if you haven't.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Might be one of the best portrayals of Damian Wayne probably out there. But it's interesting because of the choice to go with Damian and not the other members of the Bat family, right? Because Damian, I guess, for a lot of people, is the modern Robin. We should probably point that out. He is the modern Robin today, but it's also this interesting thing that I think what James Gunn is going to attempt to do is, much like he's saying Superman should be 4-quadrant appeal to everybody. He should be a character that appeals to everybody. I think what James Gunn's going to do for Batman is try to make him more family friendly, a more 4-quad Batman. And by doing that, what's more relatable by making Batman a father that has to deal with this, pestering teenage son that constantly combats him all the time. with everything, right? So I think it's actually a dynamic that I think makes a lot of sense. But the best part about all of this, Adam, is we're getting the Bat Family in live action, and we did not have to sacrifice Matt Reeves' Batman universe to get it. That's
Yeah,
the best part.
it really is the best of both worlds. And
Yep.
to your point, you know, try, with James, you think James Gunn is trying to make uh, this Batman, more family friendly for a
Mm-hmm.
quadrant. I think you're bang on there, and I think Batman is very malleable as a character that you can have two drastically different iterations. Now, I'm not. The beauty of something like Damien is so tortured, conflicted, and dark. Dark if you want to use that overused word, gritty or whatever, and then more another overused word. That just by standing in his presence,
Mm-hmm.
Batman by default becomes lighter,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so a couple of things that I want to either more. This veers more into speculation, but Superman, from what we know, is going to be 25. Presume Batman's got a kid now in this iteration that he didn't know about for the first 8 to 10 years of that kid's life. There are also other members of the Bat family that are going to be present here. To me, Batman, in that respect, has to be older than Superman because of those
Mm-hmm.
factors.
Unless he met Talia when he was 25.
I could see. Well, then that means they were.
They were shaking it up quite early.
Yeah, no, but I think he could have met Talia when he. See, my theory is, I think this Batman is going to be in the age range of 35 to 38
Yeah,
max.
that's what I'm thinking.
And the reason I do the math, I do the math, and well, okay, if he met Talia when he was training, and he was training between the ages of, let's say, 19 and 23, or 24, then, he and Talia could meet up there in Nanda Parbat, or however the hell you pronounce it. They can do the horizontal Batusi, over there, and in Ra's al Ghul's, castle, or whatever the
Oh.
palace, whatever the hell he's got. And then Batman can go off on his merry way and start being Batman back in Gotham City, blissfully unaware that, hey, I didn't have my utility belt back then. I didn't have the special kind of bat repellent to prevent any accidents. And 10 years later, look what pops up on my door. Hey, So age-wise, that all makes sense if you do the math there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think casting a 35 to 38-year-old actor still gives you the wiggle room for a 10-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
The guy winds up at the end of the 10-year plan being 48. So I think the age ranges kind of add up that I've done in my head. What do you think? How old do you think they're going to cast Batman?
Yeah, that's the ongoing question, because I think if you're gonna have two different Batman, I think you gotta have one that's in his prime and one that's kind of entering his prime. Right? That's the best way to differentiate it. So with that being said, I think you're probably spot on. I think you're looking at a Batman that's probably somewhere between the 35 and 40 range. I'll say 40 is probably the max that they'll look to cast somebody. Just because it kind of just depends, like, assuming this is going to be the classic Justice League Batman that, is mainly on the team and has the Bat family already. Batman's never also an unknown guy, from my understanding, right? So it's got to be somebody that is very well known and is mostly well liked in the industry, and that's kind of where the fun castings start to begin, right? Because I was under the impression somebody like a Jake Gyllenhaal archetype kind of fits the bill. Maybe not Jake Gyllenhaal himself, but that sort of archetype,
Sure.
That's kind of like where I think James Gunn
Like
is aiming.
known but not a superstar.
Right.
Right? Like he's a known actor, But we're not talking about Tom Cruise, right?
Right.
Or a Tom Cruise type.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I agree with you there. And the other thing that I'm curious for is I want to say that with James Gunn and the kind of visual aesthetic that James Gunn goes for when he makes comic book movies, and how by and large he's pretty much comic accurate. With that being said, to differentiate from Robert Pattinson's iteration of Batman, I think we're getting some really comic accurate visualization. So I think we're either going to get a combination of black and gray,
Ooh.
or, and this is, look, if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to be
Say it, Adam.
upset. I'm
Say
not going to stop my feed. I'm not going to tweet and hashtag bullshit. None of that. But my hope is that for the first time since Adam West, we get some blue and gray action in live action Batman.
I just want to see the oval, man. That's really all I want.
No. I think you got to differentiate. I think because think about it. If they go with the big black bat and the black and gray, that's basically, Affleck that did that.
Right.
So what are you going to copy Zack Snyder's design? You don't want that, because then who wants to hear those idiots? Right? So you don't want to do that.
Yep.
If you do the black and gray, how do you distinguish it from Zack Snyder's version? Well, you lengthen the ears a bit, and you stick a nice yellow oval there. And if you really want to go crazy and you want to differentiate it from Robert Pattinson, you want to differentiate it from every other Batman that we've seen in live action, well, go blue and gray.
And after 4 months from now, I think we're all going to be itching to see that oval again.
And I'll tell you what, Nick. If Batman and Superman, respectively, look the way Dan Mora draws them in the world's finest comic book,
ooh, yeah,
I'm going to have to change my pants. I'll call it right now, because that is the quintessential version of those two characters for me. And if he pulls that off, I'm ready. And like I said, if this Batman is lighter than Robert Pattinson, I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant Morrison went into lighter territory with his Batman. He went weirdly dark too, but he also, so there was a good balance of both. So there's so much here to be happy about as a Batman fan. Like we're literally getting everything.
Yep.
What more? What more could we want?
It'll be a fun time. That's going to be a fun time, man.
And as a bonus, at least for one last time, if that's what it ends up being, I get to see Michael Keaton one more time.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen some people get upset that, this means he's not going to be Batman going forward. Yeah, look, I wanted those 3 projects that he was supposed to be in.
Never say never.
Things happen. That's the way the cookie crumbles. So you know how I'm deciding to, as a lifelong Michael Keaton, you know how much I love Michael Keaton. As a lifelong Michael Keaton Batman fan, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cherish the fact that we're getting him back at least this one last time. It's something I never expected to see again. So I'm going to enjoy it, even if it is one more time. And then, if I got to move on, I'll have 3 Michael Keaton Batman-related films that I can watch at any time. But as a Batman fan, I've got nothing but excitement for both the Batman Part 2 and the Brave and the Bold. And I think you're in the same boat.
It's going to be a fun time. Can't wait.
That's where we are with the news. It's a good time to be a enjoyer of Batman in live action. And when we have news on who this other Batman is and what actor gets to play Damian Wayne,
Lord,
and who's going to be cast as Dick Grayson Nightwing, because I guarantee you he's in that film. I can almost
Oh yeah.
write a check to that. Who gets cast in these roles? When that news comes out, we'll discuss it. We'll talk about it. We'll break it down. So until then, stick with us. But what we're going to do now is take a quick break, and then on the other side of that break, we're going to discuss a classic, which is for the purposes of our show, it's going to be the season finale of the season 1 rewatch of Batman the Animated Series, and the big finale of this special viewing order that was arranged by a fan of the series is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So right after the break, we're going to talk about that beauty. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back. And as promised, we are going back in time to, I guess it was Christmas of 93 or 92?
93, I want to say.
Okay, yeah.
I know it was Christmas though. Yeah, you got that right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we are going to discuss and review Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Now, just to set the stage, talk about what a time it is now to be a Batman fan. What a time it was then to be coming off of the heels of Batman Returns and then getting another cinematic version of Batman in the form of this film. And remember, this film was theatrically released. And so yeah, it was just, and I'll go ahead and say it. I think, so many people do lists of their favorite Batman movie, the best Batman movie, whatever way you want to word that particular list. I would not, unless you specify with the question, what's your favorite live action Batman movie? If you just say, what's your favorite Batman movie, period. There are a lot of people that put Batman Mask of the Phantasm at number 1. And I would not begrudge them one bit. Now, I saw this in theaters way back in 93 at 10 years old. When did you first see this, Nick?
Yeah, so I first saw this as a little kid. I probably had been about 6. I think I was 6 years old at the time. This was another one. DVD was bought by my dad as like a surprise. I loved Batman at the time. I popped it, and I still have that DVD. It's one of my favorites. It's actually how I did this rewatch for. I popped that old DVD in, and then did the classic rewatch on that one, not the HBO Max version. But yeah, so I saw this initially as a little kid, and I was just blown away at just not like aesthetically how great it looked, but just how awesome it was. I mean, like it and how well it plays to both sides, right? Like a little kid can watch this and fall in love with it, and then adults can watch it too and get something just as much out of it. So yeah,
that's a great point, because as an adult watching this, I was just as riveted. I mean, I wish I could do. I mean, it's impossible. But I would have loved to do it like if I had a time machine, a side by side kind of comparison of the 10-year-old me watching this movie with now 39-year-old me approaching 40 watching this movie. Yeah. And if I had to bet, I'm guessing if you look over at both of our facial expressions, they're probably the same, around the same points in the movie. But give us a little bit of, so what's the story for the people that have, again, I don't know where you're living, but for the people who have never seen this movie, give us a brief synopsis of what this is about.
Yeah, so Batman Mask of the Phantasm, like you kind of reiterated off the top, is it's kind of like this continuation of Batman the animated series. It's a story of, granted, we've seen this a few times, especially in the Batman animators, where it's like the framing of Batman. So Batman is framed for killing these series of mobsters that have a connection to a love interest of his past. And the villain that is at hand here is called the Phantasm, who kind of remains shadowy and unnameless for a good portion of the movie. And then we find out that Bruce Wayne fell in love with this woman called Andrea Beaumont in earlier, kind of like his earlier stages being Batman. So before he was really in the crux of being Batman, he kind of fell in love. And like the story that we've kind of grown to known is that that love story didn't exactly work out. So then we kind of do this flashback of going back and forth between Bruce's earlier stages as Batman, which was awesome, and kind of the present day where this person from Bruce's past shows up, and then it kind of remains a little more clear that now it's her coming back to exact revenge on her father's demise. So then it's Batman trying to clear his name, and Batman trying to come to terms with his past and kind of move forward in that way.
Um, yeah, no. What I loved about this was the sort of the balance between present day storytelling and the flashbacks.
Yep.
I thought that was very effectively. That line was very effectively walked, uh, and I think it was relatively seamless. There wasn't a period where the transition to the flashbacks confused me at all or took me out of the story. I love that it centered around, both in the past and present, like the
Mm-hmm.
mafia, the mob,
Yeah.
because that is such a, apart from the crazies, which are Clayface, Riddler, Joker, Penguin, etc., etc. Another part of Gotham that I think differentiates it from other areas is the focus on also having to deal with everyday criminals like mobsters, right? And so I love that was a heavy focus. Um, and the revenge story, about how the Phantasm, who is eventually revealed as spoiler, Andrea,
Yep.
is attacking uh, mobsters that wronged her and her family, that eventually killed her father, and she's taking revenge out on them. And so, um, that is a very understandable motivation for a quote unquote villain, and she's kind of like her justification is like, they're I'm targeting basically bad people. I'm targeting
Mm-hmm.
criminals, and it's like, I mean, she's not wrong. She's taking scumbag off the board. I mean, you know, if she was harming, you know, a mother going grocery shopping, that was just minding her own business, then I'd be like, you're a little excessive, lady. But I mean, here, I could sympathize with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
I, I love the fact that up to this point, I think this was a character created solely for this, um, and it didn't feel forced. It felt very like she felt very much like she had been part of the Batman mythos since the inception of it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't something. Oh, this is brand new. This is how am I going to get into it? Like it just fit seamlessly with it. What were your thoughts about all that?
Mm. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think the just the tone and the look and feel of the character of Phantasm I thought fit like brilliantly just with the animated series in general. The fascinating part to me, like you like you kind of just said too, is how much of the love story you're actually rooting for in this movie,
Yeah,
and why it works so well. Is that, when you're watching this, it's like you're rooting for, Bruce to be happy, and you kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
almost want that to happen. And then, like, when they get that second chance, of course it's Batman, so it's not gonna work out. But then it's
yeah,
like, the tragedy of it not working out, and then the realization of when Bruce discovers, who Phantasm is heartbreaking. Because then it's like, it's also fascinating because this movie serves as like this origin to Batman, because we didn't really get it in the animated series, and the only other time that we really got it was in Robin's Reckoning.
yeah,
So to get this from Bruce going back to the beginning and seeing how young in his career he was with the ski mask, and the
oh
the
yeah,
not so perfect utility belt at the time. Like he has a hammer and a few like thumbtacks or something, right? And kind of a utility belt. That's cool. Seeing little details. I know, sorry, I'm rambling and other stuff,
no,
but
no, no, that's good.
seeing details like how he saw that Batmobile and like that futuristic world for the first time kind of inspired him to have, the Batmobile of choice. There's little winks and nods to when he's in the back computer, and there's O'Neill and Adams flashing on the screen, right? So
Yeah,
there,
yeah, the street names, yeah,
yeah, so there's just so much to kind of love and appreciate. But yeah, I think you're 100%. It's fascinating how well the character of Andrea fits, and it's even more painstaking that this was the only time that we really only ever saw her. So I
and
think she really, really fits well.
oh, absolutely. And you're right when you say you're rooting for Batman to find happiness. Like, you're right. As longtime Batman fans, right, we accept that. Man, this poor sob. Sorry, Martha, didn't mean to offend. But this poor sob is not going to be happy, right? Like a love relationship. It's but for a second, it's like even as a fan, you're like it's almost like you're telling the screen, like when he's asking his parents, the grave of his parents, can I, haven't I done enough? Can I be happy?
Hmm.
As a Batman fan, this movie does its job so well that you're yelling at the screen. Yeah, it's okay. Like, you can stop. Like, I'll be,
Yep.
and in your mind's eye, you're trying to rationalize. I'll be okay if Batman stops. Like, it's okay. I've had plenty.
Hmm.
You can go and be, so you almost, like, you get lost in the story to the point where it's fictional, but you're like, yeah, go. It's okay. Go ahead and be happy. As a Batman fan, I absolve you of this responsibility. Go and be. Go and tell Alfred to find you a pen and start clicking. Um, you know. But yeah, so it just works. Like, that whole dynamic of wanting him to have this. Um, it was really cool that the voice of Andrea would later become Lois Lane
And Delaney.
in Superman the animated series. So,
Hmm.
in some multiverse, no wonder Batman and Superman fight all the time, because he was
Something about that
uh,
voice.
yeah. You know what? There should have been a. I would have laughed if Batman had said, your voice sounds very like someone I used to know,
Yeah.
or something like that. Um, And Andrea, I guess the first name would be, she was named after the casting director, Andrea Romano.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's a nice touch.
Hmm.
Um, you talked about the ski mask aspect of it, and the very early nights, and so the bare bones, street, uh, prototype Batman, if you will, and that stuff was clearly influential on Batman Begins,
Yep.
because you saw elements of that in that movie. Although this animated movie, extrapolated on an action sequence a lot more than Batman Begins did, and I thought it was more action packed. The time we get to spend with
Hmm.
proto Batman, let's call him, and but it was so well done. And even the way they sort of did the whole inspiration of the Bat, where he wasn't sitting in his study, just brooding 24/7. He had just proposed to Andrea. She said yes. They were kissing, and then the swarm of bats. So it's like, yeah. When that happens, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it ain't meant to be. Um, but yeah. So it was a nice reinterpretation of that moment as well. Um, and even the Phantasm herself, I think, is inspired by the villain from Batman Year Two. I think it's the Reaper.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Like the similarity, So they did take from that, I think, a little bit as well. And I believe, I could be mistaken. Mr. C would probably know better than me, but I think Todd McFarlane did some covers for that story.
I would assume so. I think so.
Maybe if Mr. C listens to this, maybe
Yeah.
he'll chime in and let me know. But I think.
Yeah.
By the way, happy belated birthday to Mr. C.
Yeah.
Shout out. But yeah, so that I noticed that when looking at the Reaper the Phantasm, she reminded me of that character. I think it was called the Reaper in Year Two. So the really interesting thing about this movie is the inclusion of the Joker. Actually, there's something different about you.
Something else that's interesting.
Well, what's going on here, Zeddy?
So here's the thing: we've been talking about this movie so much, it got me thinking about Andrea Beaumont and just Dana Delaney's voice, and I got hot in the room that I was in here, man. So I needed to change my shirt so we could finish this conversation. Believe it or not.
And you know what? Since you bring up Andrea Beaumont and Dana Delaney, I think because of her longevity in DC, being both Andrea Beaumont and Lois Lane, I have to include her as a Hall of Fame member on the Multiverse Wives list. So Dana Delaney, you just made the list.
I'd still would love to see how long that list is one of these days. It's got to be.
I don't even know how long it is.
It's got to be like a Christmas wish list. It's got to just be.
That's the crazy part, is that I don't even know how long it is. But yeah. So the interesting thing about this movie is the inclusion of the Joker, because if memory serves, for the first time in this animated universe, we get a bit of a backstory, an origin, if you will, for the Joker, and that is that he's a mob enforcer for who was the mobster again? I forgot the mobster. Is it Thorne?
Yes.
Right. So Rupert Thorne. And the reason we know this is because during a flashback we see when Thorne and his people went to talk to Andrea Beaumont's father, we see outside of the door the sort of enforcer, and it's the Joker.
Oh wait, was it Chucky Saul? Is that who it was?
Oh, it might have been. You're right.
Chucky
You're right.
Saul.
You're right. Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, you see the enforcer, and he smiles, and he's got the crooked, the nose, and the smile is the same way, the same shape as Joker. So that's the giveaway. And then of course, Bruce in his flashback realizes this, and this is the big, this is the realization, and he's able to figure out, to track both Andrea and the Joker next, which is to the World's Fair, or the decrepit location that used to be the World's Fair. So before we get into the third act set piece, what did you think of the inclusion of the Joker here?
Yeah, it was actually fascinating to think about, because it's one of those things when you go back and rewatch, it's like, Batman the Animated Series didn't give a really origin for Batman. It also didn't really give an origin for the Joker either, right? Almost all of his villains were already just villains, aside for a few of them in like that first season. But the Joker is always interesting because there's never really one definitive origin for him. So it's always fascinating which one they always decide to go with when they do decide to do an origin for him, right? But it was pretty cool seeing him, like, he was always kind of tied to Bruce Wayne one way or another, right? Like, they met all these years ago and Bruce didn't realize it, and then here's, Arthur, for all lack of intents and purposes,
let's just call him that.
Turns into the Joker all these years ago and is actually fighting the one guy that he kind of eyed down many, many years ago. So it was a cool thing because it actually ties everything together beautifully too.
Yeah.
Like Andrea always kind of had a bone to pick with him, never liked him, and then it kind of all ties together. Where like it makes sense that it's them three that kind of end it all together.
And I love the aspect of having the big set piece in the third act take place at the World's Fair. It kind of, and this is a popular phrase among Twitter these days, but it kind of brings things full circle.
As of this recording, it is.
Yeah, but yeah, and no, me saying that doesn't mean that the Batman the Animated Series universe is going to be restored, even though I'd love that to happen. But let's not get delusional. Well, technically, kind of sort of is with the Cape Crusader.
I was gonna say, I think we're getting the better of both worlds.
Yeah, we're getting the best of both worlds there. And we wouldn't have known that when we started this recording that the Cape Crusader is going on Amazon. The spoiler, it's going on Amazon. The benefit of not recording, spoiler alert, we're not recording this in one sitting, thanks to Skype nonsense and shenanigans. But anyway, so no, it was a nice full circle moment for the finale to take place there, and really, it's Batman versus Phantasm versus the Joker, and it's got to be hell for Batman because, like, he wants to stop the Joker. He also doesn't want Andrea to take it too far with the Joker, because once she's already gone down that road, but once you go down that road, there's no turning back. So, he's trying, in this instance, he's attempting to save the Joker, which is a real conflict. You got to believe it's a conflict of interest, because I think even though Batman will never want to kill him, like, normally when he's facing the Joker, he's bringing him to justice, but here he's trying to save him, which is in a more direct way, which is very weird, very strange, very unique position that they put Batman in. I think to this point in the animated series history, I don't think he's been in this kind of a tough spot to this degree. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's I actually like the way that you put that, because it really does make sense, right? Where it's like Phantasm kind of just has a mission to complete, and she just wants to kill the Joker and then atone for her sins, and especially when you see the way that it ended, she had no intention of really making it out, I don't think, out of that World Trade Center, so it's fascinating. Whereas, Batman just wants to redeem Andrea and potentially maybe get a second chance with the love of his life.
Right.
But Joker being caught in the middle of it, he's like, well, I can't let somebody die, even if I don't particularly like them or think they're a great person. So it is kind of this philosophical kind of third act that, it's interesting to think about, nonetheless. But I think, especially when you get to the intensity of that third act too, I think it just makes it all that much more better.
And you have to wonder, like you said, that on some level Batman will be hoping to redeem her and sort of get a second chance. But knowing the way Batman is mentality-wise, even if that's what he wanted, could he have that, given the fact that he would have to reconcile in his own mind for that to happen? In his own mind, he'd have to reconcile the fact that she's taken lives, and I don't know that he could do that. So, he may want to have a second chance, but I don't think he's gonna.
Right.
If it had played out differently, I don't know that he would have succeeded in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this big chaotic explosion through the course of the final act, and that was really well for an animated film. It's very well choreographed, very well done.
Yeah.
Very, you could tell this was made for the theater because
Yeah.
it was bigger in scope than anything we had seen on the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way the explosion leaves Batman to assume is that both the Joker and Phantasm don't make it out of the explosion. Of course, the Joker being the Joker and continuing on throughout the DC AU, he survived, and we do get two kind of not end credit but end of movie kind of scenes where that give Batman sort of notification that Andrea survived, and well, it gives the audience and Batman. So the audience gets to see Andrea on a boat, and she's kind of sort of, gotten away. For Batman's point of view, in the Batcave, he finds was it an amulet? Was it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was because I don't think it was the ring that he gave her because I think that disappeared. So I think it had been an amulet. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like a necklace.
Jewelry. It might have been a ring.
Yeah.
It might have been a necklace, but there was definitely that implication, so that he knew that she was out there still.
Right.
And the cool thing about that is that scene of him finding that piece of jewelry is very reminiscent of the end of the 2003 Daredevil movie, where Ben Affleck's Matt Murdock finds the Braille necklace that he had given Elektra.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find it cool that there's a link. I don't know if it was intentional on Daredevil's part, but that link is there. Given how much we know Ben Affleck at one time, loved Batman. I don't know anymore how much he's in love with the character, but he at one time he did. So I could see a scenario where Ben Affleck went to the director Mark Steven Johnson and said, "Hey, remember Batman the Animated, Mask of the Phantasm? Let's include a scene like that for Matt and Elektra, right?"
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't shock me if he did that. But
Sure.
Either way, it was a nice parallel that I noticed when I was viewing the Phantasm movie. But I like that ending in terms of Bruce finding that revelation in the cave, because that's the happiest ending he could have got with Andrea. Look, she got away, so I don't have to be the one to bring her to Arkham. Hopefully my influence will have changed her ways. That's his hope. And so I like the ending. I like that ending a lot. I like that she did get away.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, I think for me it was that each of them were kind of at peace with the decisions that obviously they made with their lives, right? Like I obviously like Andrea kind of probably didn't really get the life that she probably deserved after that, considering all the murdering and everything that she did then. But she at least gets to be at peace. She gets to atone for the life that she chose and kind of gets to be off on her own. She doesn't really get to be with somebody that she loves. At least we don't think. She's kind of just like living her life as is, but in like a punished way almost, right? But she's not in jail or anything. Whereas Bruce, it's that I'm always gonna be a bad man. This is the life I chose. I can't be with the person I want to be with, so this is what I've chosen, right? So in a way, it's kind of like choosing the path that you've chose and kind of just living with that choice that you made. And then the Joker in the middle of it is just he's the Joker.
It's chaos. That's exactly what he brings, right?
Exactly.
And you're right about the theme of choices, and this movie is a lot about that, right? And there's a consequence to every action, and for Batman, it's often having to put his happiness aside. For Andrea, it's having to now live in hiding.
Yep.
Right. So.
Yep.
Very interesting. Interesting themes at play there. Before we sort of rate this movie, it's interesting to think about the fact that in terms of the animated universe, this is the one and only time we saw Andrea Beaumont / Phantasm.
Yeah.
That's kind of surprising to me.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect that. It would have been interesting to see her carry over to a couple episodes of the show. Because you can't say that the movie was in a separate universe, right?
Right, and it's a continuation. Yeah,
it's the same universe, or it's a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Dana Delaney being the voice of Lois Lane would have hindered anything, because we've seen people do multiple voices. Although her voice doesn't sound any different.
Yeah.
Like when Andrea speaks, I hear Lois. So maybe it did cause an issue. Like maybe it's like.
Oh yeah.
It would have been,
you mean like in the world's finest animated movie? I think that caused a really big issue.
Yeah, it's like, the fact that Bruce was kind of moving in on Lois, which I thought was great, because it just puts Clark at a total, like, his reaction is
so hard.
But it's like, I would have liked, I think we touched on this the first time we recorded, but it would have been cool in that movie if Bruce had said to Lois, "You sound like somebody I used to know."
Yeah.
That would have been really funny. You know?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't think of these things.
Right.
20 some odd years ago, whenever the hell
yeah.
Actually,
you're wearing a
30.
purple jacket. I knew somebody once that wore that.
Yeah. I know a clown that likes purple too, but anyway, no. I don't think he wants to be dancing with Lois and thinking about the Joker. That's not on my bingo card if I was Batman, if I was Bruce. But yeah, no, so it was interesting that she never resurfaced, but but
especially with what she's popped up in too, right? Not to cut you off, right? I mean, obviously, like Tom King's one,
which is
popped
cool.
up in a Justice League animated series episode. Yeah.
So a very cool segue is that our next episode, which you'll hear soon. You should have already heard it, but because of, again, technical difficulties, we're still here on this episode. But the next one you'll hear in regards to this particular show will be a review of Tom King's Batman Catwoman 12-issue maxi series. And so there are a lot of surprises in that episode. I'm not going to spoil anything, but for those of you who know my sensibilities and my Twitter, or the inversed sort of ending to these shows that we do, you guys are going to be very shocked, and you should all be sitting down for the end of that podcast, because you're going to hear something that you're only going to hear ever done the way I did it once, and never again unless I'm paid an exorbitant amount of money. And if you want to make donations, I have a PayPal, which I can forward to you. If the donation is big enough, I'll do it, because as the $1 Million Man once said, everybody's got a price. So yeah, just make it the right amount, and I'll do it. But I'll do cameos with just me saying it the right way, just to please Batcat fans. But so Zeddy, we finally reached the end of this show after 2 attempts.
Yeah.
But in doing that, it's now time to rate this fantastic movie. So give it a letter grade. Sure.
Yeah, I think this is one of the greatest pieces of Batman medium ever to be existing. And I think the fact that, you and I can still talk about this movie just on any given day, the fact that it's over, God, what is it, over 30 something
They
years
come out
old?
92 or 93, was it? 92, right?
Yeah. So
it's 31 years old.
Yeah. So the fact that, it's still like even talked about like as popular as it is, and as highly regarded as it is too. I think it just speaks to how well it is. So for me, it's an A plus. I think this is one of the greatest Batman, just movies in general ever made. How about you?
Yeah, it's an A plus for me. Not only is it, and there have been a lot of good ones, but it's the best Batman animated film made to date. I think. I think it is, and you could put it up there. The case could be made if you had a list of best all-time Batman movies, be it live action or animated, the whole spectrum. If somebody chose this movie, I would not be shocked, and I would not question it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that damn good. It's in terms of Batman origin. Like if that's what you're looking for, it's definitely, it's certainly, it gives you that. And yeah, it's one of those that I can watch at any time, and it never gets old.
Well said.
So for anybody that hasn't seen this movie yet, why? Get on that. And if you have, I'd consider making it a once a year rewatch, as I do. Yeah, I can't sing this movie's praises enough, and it just makes me all the more excited for Batman the Cape Crusader, because in some way it's a spiritual prequel, I guess, to this franchise. Well, I mean, we'll wait and see what it actually is, but with Bruce Timm, Matt Reeves, and J.J. Abrams involved, I mean, that's a trifecta.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way you could get me more excited for three people is if I was at the Playboy Mansion with, Alexa Bliss, Margot Robbie, and Megan Fox.
Hey, careful! You were ready to trade one Harley Quinn for another.
Well, listen,
Come on.
in the multiverse of lives, there can never be enough Harleys. So I have the right to.
I caught you red-handed on that
well,
one.
No. Well, at least as long as neither of them catch me, I'm good. You see, it's how you. It's all about how you do it. But yeah, so
you were feeling the gesture, my friend.
Yeah. So that trilogy of people, gets me excited for that show. But it's Batman, and I'll give anything. Let's be real. Anything with the Batman brand on it, I'll give it a shot. I've even watched 2 episodes of Gotham Knights. So, I mean, I know some people are probably rolling their eyes, but it is what it is. I'm a mark for Batman. I'm an easy get for Batman content. So, it is what it is. But this was a great piece of Batman content. We had fun talking about it, and it's going to be fun discussing the continuation of Phantasm story in that Batman Catwoman 12-issue maxi series. So stay tuned, and that will be in your feeds wherever you get podcasts and vidcasts very soon. But until then, if you want to talk to Nick or I about Batman-related content, where can they find you, good sir?
Yeah, thank you so much again, Adam. This is always a blast, my friend. My handle is on the screen down below, but if not, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Nick Zennick. I am also available on TikTok at Nick Zennick, but I am most notably found on the Vigilante 1929 podcast, so go give that a listen wherever you find your podcast as well. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. And you can find me at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. You can find the podcast network at MMNPDC on Twitter. You can find the Facebook group, which is listed in the description below. Click that link. I will add you, and we can continue the conversation there. But until next time, remember, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm is forever. From the first time Dana Delaney lent her fantastic voice to a DC animated project, to the last. So long, everybody.